The Galactic Council's sneers of human inferiority turned to shrieks of horror as Earth's mightiest warrior, Commander Benjamin Young, marched into the Great Hall to make humanity's stand. Humanity was outmatched by the alien scourge in numbers and technology. But on this day, one lone human commander would prove that courage and tenacity can conquer any foe. Benjamin's combat boots clomped on the polished alien metal as he stomped past the cowering council members from 100 worlds. Insectoid mandibles clacked, avian beaks squawked, and reptilian eyes narrowed at the sight of a human in the inner sanctum. But the fiercest glare of all came from Corvus, the grey-feathered hawk-like Malon leader perched on his elevated throne. "I'll dispense with pleasantries, tiny mammal," Corvus growled. "One of our top scientists, Dr. Atrox, has absconded with a planet-killing nano-weapon. A single microscopic canister could devour your planet in minutes. Atrox pilots an abandoned dreadnought and aims to test his monstrosity on an inhabited world to blackmail us. He's hidden in your solar system's icy fringe, believing himself beyond our reach." The Malon councillor leaned forward, his obsidian eyes locking with Benjamin's. "We sent our finest hunters, and they vanished without a trace. Atrox's ship is armed with human weapons he somehow acquired, weapons to shred our ships and soldiers. But he won't expect serious resistance from your kind." Benjamin clenched his fists, his knuckles popping. "So you need a human to catch a human-armed terrorist, fine. What's the other bad news?" Corvus flared his nostrils. "We intercepted Atrox's test target. He chose your Earth. If you fail, your species dies. If you succeed, we may reconsider our judgment of your species as weak and worthless." Benjamin gritted his teeth, the muscles in his jaw knotting. Billions of human lives hung in the balance, and the scornful council was giving him a near-impossible mission. He had to infiltrate and neutralize the nano-weapon. One man against a dreadnought. A grin tugged on his lips. "One volunteer is enough to end this threat, and your dim view of us, Counselor," Benjamin said. "By the time I'm done, you'll be thanking the human who saved your feathered ass." Without another word, he spun on his heel, his armored shoulders eclipsing Corvus, and marched out to prepare. The Malon had size and strength, but humanity had guts. This wasn't just Benjamin's fight. This was humanity's stand, and he would not allow Earth to fall. Benjamin had no time to lose. Corvus's guards quickly ushered him down winding corridors to a secure briefing room deep in the bowels of the council headquarters. The doors whirred open, and Benjamin stepped inside, taking stock of his team. Marcus, a grizzled older veteran, leaned against the wall, his bulging arms crossed over his barrel chest. He gave Benjamin a curt nod. Zack, young and wiry, hunched over a computer console, his fingers flying across the holographic keys. He glanced up, flashing a cocky grin. And then there was Talon, a Malon. His sharp angular features and piercing yellow eyes marked him as one of Corvus' kind. Benjamin jabbed a thumb at him. "Why's he here?" he demanded. "The council doesn't trust us to handle this on our own?" Talon met Benjamin's gaze evenly. "I volunteered. That ship you're boarding, I helped design her. I know every rivet, every conduit. You need me." Benjamin held Talon's stare, tension crackling between them. After a long moment he nodded curtly. He didn't have to like it, but he couldn't deny the logic. "All right, team, let's see what we're up against," Benjamin said, turning to Zack. The hacker pulled up a schematic of the dreadnought, the hologram spinning slowly in the center of the room. "Bad news, boss. Looks like the terrorist has completely overhauled the ship's security systems. We're talking DNA-encoded locks, quantum encryption, the works. It's like he knew we were coming." Benjamin frowned, studying the schematic. "How long to crack it?" Zack shook his head. "Normally weeks, maybe months, but I've got an idea. It's just, well, you're not going to like it." Benjamin sighed. "When did he ever? Spit it out!" Zack pointed to a pulsing conduit on the schematic. "That's the main data relay. If we can physically tap into that, I can bypass the encryption entirely. But the conduit runs through the reactor core," Talon finished grimly, "the most heavily shielded section of the ship. And if the reactor's safety protocols have been tampered with, One stray shot could trigger a meltdown. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Benjamin stared at the schematic, his mind racing. Marcus broke the silence. "High risk, high reward," he rumbled. "Story of our lives, isn't it?" A smile tugged at the corner of Benjamin's mouth. He'd handpicked this team for a reason. They were the best of the best, ready to do whatever it took. "Wouldn't have it any other way," he said. "Gear up, people. We've got a planet to save." The team burst into action, checking weapons and strapping on armor. Benjamin watched them, pride swelling in his chest. Humans and Malons working side by side, all differences set aside in the face of a greater threat. They had their mission. They had their plan. Now all that was left was to execute it. No matter the cost. The sleek, angular lines of the human-made insertion craft sliced through the void as it sped towards the far reaches of the Oort cloud. Inside, Benjamin and his team checked their gear, the tension palpable in the cramped confines of the ship. Benjamin stared out the viewport, his brow furrowed. The dreadnought's last known coordinates blinked on the navigational display, but as they drew closer, there was no sign of the massive vessel. "Something's not right," Benjamin muttered, his eyes scanning the starfield. "Where's the ship?" Suddenly alarms blared, bathing the cockpit in pulsing red light. A massive energy signature flared to life behind them, the readings off the charts. "What the hell?" Elena, their pilot, snapped, her hands flying over the controls. The dreadnought shimmered into existence, its cloaking field disengaging. The enormous ship loomed over their tiny craft, its hull bristling with weapons arrays that thrummed with barely restrained power. "It's a trap!" Talon shouted, his talons clacking on his console. "Evasive maneuvers!" Elena wrenched the controls hard to port, sending the ship into a dizzying spiral. A heartbeat later, a barrage of plasma fire scorched the space where they'd been, the searing heat of the near miss washing over the hull. The ship shuddered, the deck plating vibrating beneath their feet. Benjamin gripped the back of Elena's seat, his knuckles white. "They're reeling us in," Zack yelled over the cacophony of warning sirens. The ship bucked and shuddered as the tractor beam locked on, an invisible fist dragging them towards the dreadnought's gaping hangar bay. Benjamin gritted his teeth, his mind racing. If Meridian had wanted them dead, they'd be nothing more than an expanding cloud of debris by now. No, this was something else. "If they wanted us dead, we'd be space dust already," he said, his voice tight with tension. "They want us alive." As if on cue, the view screen flickered to life, the sneering face of a Malon filling the display. "Commander Young," Dr. Meridian said, his voice dripping with disdain, "I've been expecting you." Benjamin's eyes narrowed, recognition sparking in his mind. The Council's briefing had been light on specifics, but he knew this Malon, knew the cruelty that lurked behind those cold, calculating eyes. "Dr. Meridian, I thought you looked familiar," Benjamin said, his voice hard. "The Council's reports didn't mention you by name, but I should have known. Only a twisted mind like yours could dream up a scheme this insane." Meridian laughed, a harsh grating sound that set Benjamin's teeth on edge. "Insane? No, Commander. What's insane is the Council's refusal to acknowledge Malon's superiority. We should be ruling this galaxy, not pandering to lesser species." The Malon's eyes gleamed with a fanatic light. "But no matter. Once I demonstrate the power of my nanoweapon, they'll have no choice but to bow to my demands." The transmission cut out abruptly as the insertion craft shuddered, drawn inexorably into the dreadnought's hangar bay. As the ship settled to the deck with a metallic clang, Benjamin saw armed Malon soldiers surrounding the craft, their weapons trained on the hatch. He exchanged a look with his team, seeing the same grim determination in their eyes that he felt in his gut. They knew the stakes, knew the odds they faced, but they were humanity's best hope. "Wait for my signal," Benjamin whispered as the hatch hissed open. Marcus and Zack nodded, their hands hovering over their weapons. Talon flexed his talons, a predatory glint in his eyes. Benjamin stepped out of the craft, his hands raised in a show of surrender. He fixed the nearest Malon with a hard stare, his voice ringing out across the hangar bay. "Take us to Meridian," he said, his tone brooking no argument. "Let's get this over with." The muzzles of Malon plasma rifles jab into Benjamin's back as the soldiers march him and his team through the dreadnought's twisting corridors. The barrels are hot, almost searing through his combat armor. Benjamin's eyes dart around, taking in every detail of their route, committing it to memory. Up ahead the corridor branches. A junction box hums on the wall, its tangle of wires begging to be torn out. Benjamin catches Zack's eye, gives him the slightest of nods. Zack lunges. His fingers close around a fistful of wires and yank. Sparks fly, the lights flicker and die. The dreadnought plunges into darkness. Chaos erupts. Benjamin slams his elbow into a Malon's throat, feeling the satisfying crunch of cartilage. Marcus barrels into another, grappling for the rifle. Talon's talons flash in the dim emergency lighting as he rakes them across a soldier's face. Elena's boot crunches into a Malon knee, her fist following up to smash into his jaw. It's over in seconds. The Malons lie sprawled on the deck, unmoving. Benjamin snatches up a rifle, tosses another to Zack. "Move," he barks. "Zack, you're with me. We're going after Meridian. Marcus, take Talon and Elena and find that data relay. We need Zack's program ready to upload yesterday." They split up, pounding down the corridors. Benjamin and Zack encounter pockets of resistance, but they blast through, leaving a trail of Malon bodies in their wake. The bridge doors loom ahead. They burst through, weapons drawn, ready for anything. But the bridge is empty. A slow clap echoes through the cavernous space. Meridian steps out from behind a console, a cruel smile twisting his features. "Bravo, Commander. I must admit I'm impressed, but you're too late." He holds up a small device no bigger than a data chip. The nano-weapon is already primed. In a matter of minutes, Earth will be nothing but dust. Benjamin levels his rifle at Meridian's head, finger tightening on the trigger. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Meridian laughs, a cold, mirthless sound. "Oh, but you don't. You see, the nano-weapon can only be disarmed by a Malon voice print. Mine, specifically. So go ahead, shoot me. But know that if you do, your precious Earth is doomed." Benjamin's finger trembles on the trigger. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth creak. Meridian has him in checkmate. He can't shoot, but he can't let this madman win. Suddenly his earpiece crackles to life. "Benjamin, it's Marcus. We've reached the data relay. Zack's program is ready, but there's a problem." The silence on the bridge shattered as Marcus's words crashed through the comm. "What is it, Marcus?" Benjamin snapped, his blood turning to ice in his veins. "What's wrong?" A pause, heavy with unspoken dread. Then Marcus spoke, his voice leaden. "The reactor's been rigged with a failsafe. If we try to access the data relay, it'll trigger a core meltdown. The whole ship will go up, and half the solar system with it." Benjamin's mind raced, scenarios and strategies flashing through his thoughts, each more desperate than the last. He opened his mouth, ready to bark new orders, but Meridian's laughter cut him off. "Checkmate, Commander," the Malon crowed, triumph etched in every line of his angular face. "You've lost. Earth is mine." Benjamin's fists clenched, his nails biting into his palms. No, not like this. There had to be a way. There was always a way. Talon's voice crackled over the comm, calm and resolute. "Benjamin, I can disarm the failsafe, but I'll have to do it manually, from inside the reactor chamber." Benjamin's gut clenched, a cold fist squeezing his insides. He knew what that meant, knew the price Talon was willing to pay. "Talon, no. That's a one-way trip." "It's the only way," Talon said, his voice steady even as Benjamin's world spun out of control. "You said it yourself, Benjamin. High risk, high reward. Zack, start the upload." "Talon," Benjamin started, desperation clawing at his throat, but the Malon cut him off. "So it's been an honor, Commander." A pause, heavy with finality. "Give 'em hell." The line went dead. Silence roared in Benjamin's ears, broken only by the pounding of his own heart. On the bridge, Meridian's smile faltered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes, as he saw the resolve hardening in Benjamin's. "What have you done?" the Malon hissed, fear edging into his voice. Benjamin didn't answer. He let his rifle clatter to the deck, the sound unnaturally loud in the charged air. Then he lunged, a roar tearing from his throat as he tackled Meridian. The nano-weapon skittered from the Malon's grasp, spinning away across the polished floor. They grappled, a tangle of straining limbs and panting breaths. Meridian was strong, his Malon physiology granting him an edge in raw power. But Benjamin fought with the strength of a man with nothing left to lose, a lifetime of training and sheer human tenacity surging through his veins. He drove a knee into Meridian's gut, felt the satisfying whoosh of air leaving the Malon's lungs. Meridian retaliated with a vicious elbow to Benjamin's jaw, stars exploding across his vision. But Benjamin rolled with the blow, using the momentum to flip Meridian onto his back. They rolled across the deck, grappling for dominance. Consoles shattered under their weight, sparks showering their straining bodies. Benjamin's vision tunneled, his entire world narrowing to the snarling face below him. With a final desperate surge of strength, Benjamin pinned Meridian to the deck, his knees driving into the Malon's shoulders. Meridian's eyes widened, fear blossoming in their depths, as Benjamin's hands closed around his throat. "Oh, you've taken everything from me," Benjamin growled, his voice raw and ragged with grief and rage. "My home, my friend, but you will not take Earth, not while I still draw breath." Meridian struggled, his claws scrabbling uselessly at Benjamin's unyielding grip. His legs kicked, his body bucking in a futile attempt to throw the human off. But Benjamin held on, his fingers digging into the soft flesh of Meridian's throat. The Malon's eyes bulged, his struggles growing weaker, more desperate. Benjamin leaned in close, his breath hot against Meridian's face. "This is for Talon," he whispered. With a sickening crunch, Meridian went limp. Benjamin staggered to his feet, his chest heaving as he fought for breath. His gaze fell on the nano-weapon, lying innocently on the deck. He stared at it for a long moment, the weight of everything it represented crashing down on him. Then, with a snarl of rage and pain, he brought his boot down on it, crushing it into 1,000 glittering pieces. In his ear, Zach's voice, thick with emotion, "Upload complete. It's done, Talon. He did it." Benjamin closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the grime and blood on his cheek. Talon. The name hung heavy in his heart, a weight he knew he would carry for the rest of his days. "Get to the hangar bay," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're leaving." The insertion craft knifed through the void, the dreadnought receding behind them. Benjamin stared numbly out the viewport, his gaze fixed on the ship that had taken so much from him. Suddenly a brilliant flash lit the darkness, a searing lance of light that burned after-images into Benjamin's retinas. The dreadnought blossomed into a fireball, a miniature sun birthed in the cold depths of space. Debris pinwheeled away, glittering shards of metal and composite that sparkled like macabre confetti. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light faded, winking out like a snuffed candle. Where the dreadnought had been, only emptiness remained, a yawning void that seemed to swallow all hope. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council hailed Benjamin and his team as heroes, saviors of the galaxy. They were paraded through the streets of 100 worlds, showered with accolades and honors that rang hollow in Benjamin's ears. He stood stiffly at the memorial service for Talon, his dress uniform stiff and unfamiliar against his skin. The weight of the medals on his chest felt like a mockery, cheap trinkets that could never hope to fill the void left by his friend's absence. Corvus approached, his expression somber as he laid a taloned hand on Benjamin's shoulder. "I'm sorry for your loss, Commander. Talon's sacrifice will not be forgotten." Benjamin nodded, not trusting himself to speak around the lump in his throat. The Malon counselor hesitated, then spoke again, his voice low and earnest. "The Council has voted to extend an offer of alliance to Earth. We would be honored to fight alongside humans in the future." Benjamin stiffened, his jaw clenching. He shrugged off Corvus's hand, his eyes hardening to flint. "No, we fight alone. We always have and we always will. Because in the end, when everything is on the line, The only ones we can trust are ourselves. He turned, his boots clicking against the polished floor as he strode away. He could feel Corvus's stare boring into his back, but he didn't look back. Couldn't look back. Earth would stand alone, a solitary beacon of defiance in a galaxy that would never understand the depths of human courage and sacrifice. Benjamin would make sure of that. Even if it killed him. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.